when you've got a man as robust as Bruce Campbell and who's created as an iconic hero as Ash, there's no pushing him around. So I think if Ash ever resurfaces, that's going to be down to Bruce more than anybody else.
How you doing today, Lee?
Hey Grant, how are you? I'm doing pretty good. Nice to see you. I like those artwork, or are they covers? Are they covers you've got behind your head there? Seen
Oh,
some
those
Evil
are
Dead.
all physical copies. Those are
Love
all
it.
the actual movies themselves. I'm a big.
You're gonna have a new one to add to the collection soon.
You mean this one?
Oh, there
I
you
got
go.
it right there. It's
There you
it's in there. It's ready. I even rewatched it the other night, and I still just love it. So I mean, congrats first and foremost on the film. It is another amazing introduction to the collection. Um, how does it feel now, after all that work and all the blood
go.
that you had to go through, to be able to see fans like myself so embracing of the movie?
Yeah, look, it's great. I couldn't be happier with how it's gone. Making a movie is not easy ever. Making an Evil Dead movie has its own unique challenges as well. One of those being making sure, me being one of them, that fans would be happy. You can't please everybody all the time, but I think for the vast majority, people have really embraced what this movie is. I think Evil Dead fans love experiencing something new within the familiar or within the universe that they love, and with that tonality and all of those things. So yeah, look, it's been great. It's been great to excite and engage what is a really super fan base, and then also to bring in some new younger fans that maybe haven't experienced Evil Dead before. This is their gateway, and then they can travel backwards in time and experience the foundations that allowed me to make this movie.
I couldn't agree more. Much like with 2013's, I love that this is, as much as I would love Ashback, I love that this does sit on its own just enough that it can be an introduction to the
Yeah,
franchise for people.
yeah.
So you've talked about this movie with so many different publications, including myself, throughout the months. And I'm curious, what is one element of the movie that you've really wanted to talk about, but nobody's asked you up to this point?
Oh, I think something. This is a small detail, but people often talk about how hard it is to make a movie, and maybe I've touched on this a little bit before. And it is tricky making something so technical and so practical. But what's really tricky is having a 9-year-old on set doing that, and not in terms of, people have asked me about, you know, does she get scared, etc. It's not even that. It's just some of the practicalities of the amount of time you can have somebody on set. And even with Gabby Eccles, who plays Bridget, it was another, she was of a certain age where you were constantly having to find clever ways to use and include them in scenes, but not like blow your schedule up. Like, this was a very, very tricky movie from a scheduling point of view to actually knit together in a format that allowed us to go and get all the things that we did. And it's such, in a weird way, it's a boring aspect of filmmaking scheduling, but it's actually also highly creative. Like, someone maybe I haven't had a chance to speak about would be my first assistant director, Dara Glynn, who I'm good friends with, and he worked on my previous movie, The Hole in the Ground, and I brought him to New Zealand to work on this movie with me. But actually, you have to be so, in his job being so creative and finding ways of, like, using doubles, you know what I mean, and using ways of creating and having access to those younger performers on set as much as possible, so that you can go and do all of that crazy stuff. And it's kind of fun because, like, Evil Dead exists in a world as well where there was always, the old fake shemp, and we did to do a lot of fake shemp in this movie as well. So the spirit of what went on 40 years ago was very much alive in how we had to approach and make this film as well.
I was going to say, if there's not at least a little bit of DIY and improv involved in an Evil Dead movie, is it truly an Evil Dead movie?
There was a lot, and I'm glad it happened. I remember going in, because I had a bigger budget on this movie significantly than my previous film, and thinking, oh, I hope this isn't easy, in the sense that I hope it's not just all slick and glossy and everything's perfect. And again, it never really is on a movie set, but we had to pull every trick in the book, like as if we had no resources. Even though we had resources, at times we nearly had to shoot and behave as if we had very, very few.
Well, you pulled it off masterfully, genuinely. One of the things that I really appreciate about this film is just its visual language, whether it be the camera work or the angle or sort of right visual approach to this that both honored Raimi as well as brought your own voice to the film.
Yeah, look, I'm very driven. Like, when I write, I'm writing to direct. So a lot of those ideas were formulated during the development and the writing process of the movie. I'm not a filmmaker. Like, of course, coverage is part of filmmaking, but I try and look for unique viewpoints and aspects and ways of telling a story, and continually like refreshing the visuality, giving you a new experience, not just scene to scene, but shot to shot. And all of those details really, really can. Like, this is also a film that is littered with so many detailed close-ups and moments. And I think I wish I could remember the number, because I knew it and I've forgotten it. But I think we've got something like, someone is going to go and figure this out and post it online, I hope. Or maybe I'll have to call my editor. But I think we've got like 2,000 cuts in the movie, like where we cut from one picture to the next, in terms of the volume of like that kind of kinetic visual energy that we wanted to capture. So yeah, like, it's like, I try and pride myself on, it's not just about how things look, it's about how that look creates a tonality and feeds into the overall experience of the movie. And because it's quite, we didn't, we get the great outdoors in the opening, but once we go inside that building, it's pretty claustrophobic and locked down. And something myself and my direct photography spoke about a lot was, we still wanted it to feel like it was kind of on an epic canvas, the choices we made with lenses and how we wanted to approach that, and to still give you quite a kind of a widescreen cinematic feel, a little bit like we would have talked about Alien. You're trapped inside this contained spaceship, yet you kind of feel that width, and you feel that sense of spectacle. And that was something that we worked in prep on very, very hard.
I can only imagine trying to capture two jarring different feels in one, but you nailed it. Another thing that I find really interesting about this film is something that continues to baffle me about the franchise overall, is just how the Deadite Deadite curse spreads. Oftentimes in the early films, it was through an injury, but with this film, we see our lead get stabbed in the hand, and yet she doesn't get the curse at all. Was that something that you discussed with Sam beforehand about trying to nail down the exact rules, or was that something you just approached through your own mind?
I tried to follow my nose. Like, of course, we would have spoken to Sam about many, many things in relation to what makes an Evil Dead movie tick. But I kind of tried to follow my own nose in terms of what it was, and wanted to have moments. I think, to me, it's about intent in a lot of ways. And the way that I looked at it in my mind, first of all, you get to play with nightmare logic, which is great. And Evil Dead exists in a world where there is a shonkiness to the rules, which I also kind of love, because it allows you to be as creative as possible. But also, and it's something why I loved Alyssa Sutherland and her performance, she understood from her first casting tape how important it was that the Deadites are kind of having fun. And she's like an apex Deadite in my mind. Like, she's pretty serious and she's maniacal, and, she's a psychopath. And to me, it's about the intent. And we've got Beth, this character that's brought into a story, and she injures her and she shows her the danger. She shows her what's there. She could wipe everybody out in a heartbeat, but they want to play. So it's actually about the intent in terms of who's next and what's next. And she wants Beth to suffer as she shows Beth the deconstruction of family, being the destroyer of family as such. So to me, she's in control the entire time and she's pulling the strings. That is until Beth starts to fight back and blows her limbs off. And, again, Ellie then doubles down and, her kids come to the rescue and turn her into something even more sinister at that point in time.
What a horrific being she becomes in that final act. It is crazy to see. I see I'm almost out of time, so I did want to ask. You've talked before about having future ideas for stories in this franchise, and you even include a little Bruce Campbell Easter egg in there, which I heard much better the second time around. But I'm curious, how are talks with Sam going? Are you and Bruce, you three, really trying to push for you to have or step in the director's chair for another one in this world?
Yeah, I think the potential is absolutely there for that to take place. I think we are all right now enjoying the success of this movie. I think it's important that you don't just absolutely try and rinse something out immediately. It's something we always would have been under discussion, because there's fun to that as we were talking and developing the movie. And Rob Tappert, who would have been on set when I was shooting, we'd often talk about some different ideas in terms of what can actually take place. I think one of the things I've maybe done with Evil Dead Rise, though, as well, is open it up further potentially to other voices to come in. I think I broke the universe open a little wider than maybe it's been before. And I think there's a lot of potential there, especially now clarifying that existence of 3 books, that's not just, say, a fun moment in Army of Darkness. It's actually kind of part of the lore. It's now part of the mythos, and starts to broaden the canon as such. So yeah, look, I'm a huge fan. They're really fun, terrifying, and challenging movies to make. And as a filmmaker, you want to be challenge. So there's definitely thoughts and ideas that are circling and things that we've discussed. And in terms of when and how that happens, that's up to the film gods.
Well, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that the film gods look down upon you with favor for that, because I would really love not only for this franchise to come back, but for you to come back to the franchise. And for my final question, I mean, Bruce has said he's retired from Ash outside of maybe doing an animated series. And so how hard are you going to try and push if you come back to at least have him pop in for a quick moment?
When you've got a man as robust as Bruce Campbell, and who's created as an iconic hero as Ash, there's no pushing him around. So I think if Ash ever resurfaces, that's going to be down to Bruce more than anybody else. Lots of people in his ear all the time. And, you know, again, I can't speak for him, but it's always possible in movie world for something unexpected to happen. Well,
you set it up nicely in this one, as well as just a great future for yourself. And like you said, other voices to come into the franchise. So Lee, thank you so much. I am truly a fan of your work and of this franchise, and I can't wait for people to see it.
Thank you. Thanks so much, dude. Take care.